Well, Sabbath greetings to everyone. Hope you've had a wonderful week wherever you are and whatever you've had going on. I hope it's been a profitable week and a good week for you. Here we are at another Sabbath, and I hope this Sabbath has started very well for you, depending on when you're listening to this, but I hope you have a fine and profitable, meaningful Sabbath wherever you're at. And if you're going through tests and trials, please know that there are people praying for you, and we know there are trials and tests going on in the area, and we want to continue to pray for one another and love each other. And it's been a very, very good week here in Sussex. It's been beautiful. I can look outside and it's only partially covered with the white stuff, and so I'm starting to see some grass again. And but it's been very, very mild, and it's been beautiful here, and I hope it has been wherever you are. But either way, we can certainly have a smile on our face and look forward to the fulfillment of all things and the return of Jesus Christ as we see the world more and more turning backwards, turning away from God, rejecting God, and that's only going to lead to the things that we know are prophesied to happen as we get closer and closer to the end of the age. So we do need to be, in that sense, very sober-minded, thinking and keeping in mind the future that is coming for us and the future that's coming for this world. This world does need a change. It needs right government. Maybe you had the opportunity to listen to the recent State of the Union address by our President, President Obama. And it's very interesting that, one of the themes throughout the Scripture, and a very powerful theme, you can't escape it from Genesis to Revelation, is this theme of personal responsibility. Even as we start out in Genesis and we see Adam and Eve and we know what God was doing there, He made them personally responsible for the decisions that they made. They had to make a decision, one very large decision, a big decision. When they got to that crossroads, of course, we know they made the wrong choice, and we know what that's led to even to this day. But the point is that that's one of the most powerful themes in the Scripture, personal responsibility. And you and I, brethren, we've got to understand that concept very thoroughly, as God has called us out of this world, and He's given us the opportunity to have that personal responsibility now. And we are responsible. We are personally responsible. And we know that much of this world around us has become rather accustomed to, getting something for nothing, and we have this whole entitlement society that we live in. God had some very simple principles. You don't work, you don't eat. Some very simple principles about how to take care of the poor and how to take care of one another in a right way, and not just handing things out and putting people in a position where it's almost better for some to not work than it is for them to go out and work and be productive in that way. That's not the way God created this society to function, this type of entitlement society. We have personal responsibility and things that each and every one of us are responsible for before God, and He gives us those responsibilities, each one of us. In 2 Corinthians 5 and verse 10, it says here that for we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ. It doesn't say that that we can sit in that seat with someone else. Each and every one of us come and we sit in that seat all alone. We're in that judgment seat, and we're all going to sit in that judgment seat of Christ, that each one may receive the things done in the body according to what he has done, whether good or bad. It's not really a difficult concept, is it? We're going to be judged according to what we do, whether good or bad, going in one direction or the other direction. And God says choose life. God says go in this direction, the way of give, the way that leads to good things, wonderful things for us, for other people, for society as a whole. Very, very simple concepts. But this world, of course, cut off from God and being led by a very powerful spirit being who is full of evil and lust and greed and all those types of things, and he's destroying this society. And we look forward to a time of restoration and for the plan of God to be fulfilled in the establishment of His kingdom on this earth. In Galatians 6, I don't always just have so many scriptures, but I think sometimes it can be helpful. It gives it maybe something to think about on the Sabbath as we approach the Sabbath. And I know this is pretty heavy, but think about these things. It's important for us on the Sabbath to think about some of these concepts and take time to meditate on these things. They're very, very important. In Galatians 6, I want to start in verse 4. It says, "But let each one examine his own work, and then he will have rejoicing in himself alone and not in another." You know, each one of us needs to examine our own work, not other people's work, but we examine ourselves. And we know as we're in this period, this is a period of self-examination, special self-examination, as we get closer and closer to Passover. And we do have time. We still have some time before that opportunity there at Passover. And we need to take that time to examine ourselves and look at ourselves and think about this idea and this concept of personal responsibility. It's so very important as we approach the Passover to understand how that all relates and ties together. We have personal responsibility. We can't point the finger and blame anyone else if we're falling short. We have to take personal responsibility. "For each one," verse 5, "shall bear his own load. Let him who is taught the word share in all good things with him who teaches. Do not be deceived, God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he will also reap." And so another very simple concept. It makes sense when you really think about it, but unfortunately this world is cut off from those concepts and the reality and the magnitude of this concept of reaping what we sow, being judged by what we do, whether good or bad, bearing our own load, in one sense working out our own salvation as well. It's not on the back of someone else. It's whether or not we're doing the work, seeking God, being close to God, understanding the magnitude of all that He's called us to. 1 Peter 4:17, "For time has come for judgment to begin at the house of God," which we know is the church of the living God. And that we are being judged at this time. That's why we have Passover every year. So we can examine ourselves. We can examine if we're making progress. We take stock. We look at ourselves and take personal responsibility for what we're doing, whether or not we're growing and changing and overcoming and embracing this opportunity that we have in this life. Our time is now for judgment, for overcoming, for learning to love God and to really know God. So I hope we're looking at these concepts, keeping these very important concepts in mind. And we would all do very well to consider this very important concept. Are we willing to take personal responsibility now for our actions? Because that's what God expects of us. He's judging us, and He wants us to take personal responsibility. It doesn't serve us to point the finger and try to play the blame game, as we call it, from time, at times. We see that all around us in the world today. Satan, the devil, doesn't take personal responsibility. And that's the kind of influence, the kind of society we see around us. No one is willing to take personal responsibility anymore. They want to point the finger and they want to blame, and they want to blame everything but themselves and their own choices and decisions for the situation they're in personally, and certainly as a nation. It's difficult. This person points, Republicans point at Democrats, and Democrats point at Republicans, and this person points at the other one. But ultimately, we all are going to sit alone in that judgment seat, and we need to think about those things and be thankful that we do have the opportunity to take personal responsibility now. It's a great opportunity. It's a wonderful opportunity because of everything that it means for us. If we can learn to take personal responsibility now and live a repentant life and stay close to God, we'll become blameless before God, complete in that sense, not perfect, but certainly growing and overcoming, and to the point where God says, okay, enter into the joy of your Lord. Enter into the kingdom that He's going to establish very soon. And that's the very purpose for our calling to be a part of that. And we have an opportunity to be first fruits. First in that sense too. The first to really take personal responsibility. I love you all. I hope you have a wonderful Sabbath wherever you're at. We'll be in Milwaukee, and looking forward to a big day in Milwaukee with Spokesman's Club and game night and all of those wonderful things going on. We look forward to seeing everyone there, and certainly we look forward to seeing all the rest of you in the coming weeks. We love you. Have a wonderful, profitable Sabbath. Take care.